nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and the one and only Chris Carter. Really excited to have on the show. Of course, Chris is our all things Steelers correspondent. He's a beat writer at DK Pittsburgh Sports, and you guys can be sure to check that out. He's also host on Locked On Steelers podcast, as well as about a million other places in the Pittsburgh area. So we are grateful for your time, Chris. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great to be back.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're gonna dig into some questions here and get right into it. But before we do, make sure you guys take a quick second, subscribe. Also, if you're interested in interacting more with the show and asking questions to folks like Chris and others that we have on the show, check out our Patreon and see what we have available for you so you can interact more with us and our guests. And but without anything else, Glenn, I'm gonna let you shoot off with the first question.
All right. Well, Chris, thanks again for coming on with us. I think the biggest story coming to this season was Big Ben. I mean, seeing how he returns from the injury, missing last season, and how he would get back to old form, or if he would get back to old form. Well, they asked Calais Campbell what he's seen out of Big Ben this year, and he said it's the best he's ever seen him. And Coach Harbaugh kind of echoed some of those sentiments. So, what have you seen from Big Ben this season that surprised or impressed you this season, especially when you consider his age and returning from that elbow injury?
The thing that Ben Roethlisberger has been different about this year, and this is what I said the last time I was on this program with y'all, was that he said back in the summer, he was like, listen, I spent the whole last season watching from the sidelines. I've seen this from a different perspective. I know what I've been doing wrong now. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, either this is Ben saying another one of his things just to say another one of his things, or maybe he's gone through something. And I think he went through something because he's been extremely efficient. And I said this I probably go back to the last time I was on the show. I said they don't need Ben Roethlisberger to throw for 5,000 yards anymore. They just need him to read the field and make the right throws. He doesn't need 400 yards in a game. 200 yards is fine. But if he capitalizes and the offense is scoring 20, 30 points per game, that's going to put them. That's going to be what the Steelers need this year, and so far they've done that. That's why they're 6-0. The last game he had three interceptions. That was, and they were kind of weird situations. He had one where he threw just a Hail Mary, just this kind of like at the end of the half, let's see what happens here. Another was just a tipped pass, and then another one where he admitted he should have thrown it higher to Juju. But you haven't been seeing him force the ball to anyone anymore. And I think that's the big thing here is that Randy Fichtner's offense, with the implementation of Matt Canada, the quarterback coach, he is a former University of Pittsburgh coach who, if you remember, I don't know if you guys are big college guys, but back in 2016 when Clemson won the national title, Pitt was the only team to beat them that year. It was Matt Canada's offense that drove that engine to beat them that year. He used a lot of motion, jet sweeps, and that's what you're seeing now with the Steelers offense with Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and trying to mix things up now. And Ben Roethlisberger loves to spread the ball around. I mean, every week you've seen either it's James Washington or Eric Ebron or Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson. He's not focused on one guy anymore like with Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell. He's seeing the field for what it is, and every week he's saying, okay, if you want to take away this guy, I'm going to go to this guy. I'm not predetermined on who I'm going to, and that's what I'm most impressed by because I've said that for years, that's his biggest problem is he's not a field commander. He's more of that gutsy gunslinger, which is great and fun to watch, but especially when you get older, you can't just be that all the time. You got to be the guy that sees everything and makes the right calls, and he's done that so far this year.
I tell you what, I've been thinking about this because of our recent signing, of course, of Des Bryant, how time away, time apart makes the heart grow fonder, right? Like, I feel like that's happening with Ben a little bit right now. And we're kind of seeing that he's reignited his love for the game, his dedication towards the game. Not that he wasn't dedicated before, but like you said, he's seeing things from a different light now because of the time away. I'm not excited about it. I tell you what, I'm not excited about it, but I want to talk about your backfield. It looks like there's a 2-man backfield so far this season in Pittsburgh with Connor being the lead guy and of course Snell being the backup. How does Pittsburgh like to use their running backs? Do both have a specific role like goal line back or receiving back, or do they like to kind of ride the hot hand? And this is an important topic because this is something we're struggling with in Baltimore. Half the fans want us to keep spreading it around. Mm-hmm. Half of us, want us to just say ride the hot hand. So what does Pittsburgh employ as far as their strategy when using those two backs?
There might have been a question as far as who would be the guy for the season before it all started. But by the time the season got going, James Conner won the RB1 spot. He's that guy for them. The first week of the season, he got hurt, and Benny Snell went for 100 yards, and people were confident about that. But then the very next week, Connor went back in there. He's had, I think, 300-yard performances so far. He's got 4 games with a touchdown in it. He protects Ben Roethlisberger very well as a pass protector. He's also been very good out of the backfield catching the ball for him and helping them in that regard. And he takes what's there. And the offensive line has really gelled this year. A lot of people were questioning if they would be good this year. Ramon Foster retired. Marcus Gilbert, they never found a replacement for him. So Matt Filer moved from right tackle to left guard. And then their starting right tackle went down. David DeCastro went down for several games. But they've just kept plugging away. And this ground game has been effective. It's James Conner all the way. You will see Benny Snell probably in on goal line situations. He scored a couple times from there, and they love to throw him in on those short distance. So he's kind of the power back. But watch out for Anthony McFarland, the rookie out of Maryland. He's been really good for them when he's been in space, and they love to kind of feed him that little draw or call a play where he's in motion and they'll flip it to him and let him use his speed out in space. And I get the feeling from him like they're eventually going to work him in, just from my years of watching the Steelers, like Jalen Samuels back in his rookie season of 2018. When he was brought in, you didn't see him at all. They talked about how they wanted to use him all training camp, and you didn't see him at all until like week 9. And then all of a sudden they're flipping him the ball and he's catching a touchdown out of the backfield. And you're like, wait, what? Where did he go? So I would expect Anthony McFarland to get some touches there, but it's pure James Conner for most of the game. Benny Snell in the short distance, and he lost some weight and sped up his pace, and now his feet are a little bit quicker. And Benny Snell, his biggest concern is holding on to the football, but when he hits a hole now, he's hitting it pretty hard.
Yeah, of course, even though he's now in a Steeler uniform, always rooting for former Terps and hoping that we can see some more carries go his direction. Well, one guy I wanted to ask you with is Chase Claypool. I mean, he was the popular waiver claim in fantasy football leagues all across the country a couple weeks back when he scored 4 touchdowns against the Eagles. And it's interesting because he ranks 5th currently in targets, but yet first in receiving yards. So was that just a flash in the pan game, and that's what led to the receiving yards despite not getting the targets that Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson get, or is this just maturation and just kind of as the season goes along, he's going to become more and more involved in the offense?
They're already involving him in the offense. He's now the 3rd receiver officially with the way that they use him. But again, Ben Roethlisberger's seeing the field and taking what's there. So it's not necessarily, hey, we're going to design this play to go to Chase Claypool. It's, hey, we're designing this play to go up against this alignment, and we're going to get either this open, or that open. And with the Eagles, they thought that they could leave alone Chase Claypool a little bit, leave him in single coverage, and they got ate up by it. And a few other teams got bit by that too. I think it was the Broncos gave up the first touchdown to Chase Claypool in single coverage. And Ben Roethlisberger's loved throwing it to him. Joe Hayden said on the first week of training camp that Chase Claypool was going to be a problem this year. And Ben Roethlisberger made it clear, like, no, we're working this guy into the team. He's not going to just sit around and just be a guy that we occasionally throw to. But the thing is, they're not going to force him the ball. You saw that last week with the Titans. The Titans kept Kevin Byard and their safeties over top of Chase Claypool most of the game because they said, look, Jonathan Joseph, Malcolm Butler, none of you are speedsters. You can't keep up with that guy. We're going to double him for most of the game. And they took him out of it. But Ben Roethlisberger was like, okay, double him. Fine. Deontay Johnson, here's 2 touchdowns. Juju Smith-Schuster, here's 85 yards. And that's kind of what the Steelers have done. They're not the Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell offense anymore, where you're seeing one guy get the fantasy points and one guy get the targets. You're seeing Ben Roethlisberger take what it is. But Chase Claypool, he's absolutely part of this system. I'm really interested to see how the Ravens line up their guys against certain players because he's not just a speedster. He's not just a jump ball guy. He's beating people in routes. He's winning hand battles. Darius Slay on a key 3rd down in that Eagles game, pressed him, tried to jam him. Claypool just swiped his hands away, beat him with the slant route, and then Slay even tried to drag over his shoulder. He protected the football. Chase Claypool's he's very much ahead of the game when it comes to rookies, and they've already basically lined him up at every receiver position in the playbook. He's learning so fast in this NFL, and I think that's the scariest part of his game.
Man, I tell you what, it's pretty frustrating because for all intents and purposes, him and Miles Boykin are pretty much the same human being. And the production we get out of Miles Boykin is nothing in comparison to Chase Claypool. So
yeah, one plays to their size and the other plays half their size.
Yeah, like literally on paper, they are the same human, right? Like speed, height, weight, went to the same school, good friends, same build. But dang it, come on, Boykin. Anyway, that's another story for another day. But it is cool to see Claypool's, and as cool as it can be as a Ravens fan to see the progression of a Steelers wide receiver. It is cool to see. But you mentioned the offensive line. That was a great segue. It's something that I want to talk to you about because you talked about the concerns with, some of the guys getting older, and then of course the retirement and some injuries and things. A lot of local media members are excited about the matchup of Villanueva and Yannick Ngakoue.
Yep.
Of course, who we just picked up. And then of course you got Judah on the other side. So just to kind of paint a picture for you, a lot of people are saying that Yannick is going to go up against Villanueva, and they feel really good about that matchup based on what he's been doing this year. And then if that ends up, they're going to double team him. If so, they'll switch Judon and kind of move Yannick around. How do you see Villanueva faring in this game? And then the O-line as a whole, does that matchup of those two with Ngakoue and then Judon and throw Calais in there, does that concern you in this game?
I think that there's some concerns. Villanueva is certainly the weak link of the Steelers' offensive line, if there is one. I'm not saying that he's a bad offensive lineman, but everyone else has played pretty strongly. Matt Filer's looked really good at left guard. They've always wanted him there. They just needed him at right tackle the past couple of years because of injuries. But Marquise Pouncey back into form, doing his thing. David DeCastro, all-pro guard, doing his thing. But Chukwuma Okorafor has truly stepped up at right tackle. I said I liked him in the 2018 draft when they took him in the 3rd round. I said his footwork's there. He just needs to learn how to be mean and nasty. And he's learning that very quickly. In his first start this year, he went up against the Texans. The Texans lined up J.J. Watt next to him almost the entire game. Out of, I think at the time, I think it was 89 games that J.J. Watt had played since his 2nd year in the league. And of those 89 games, there were 3 times where he was held without a tackle for loss or a quarterback hit. And that became the 4th time in his career since, and that was because Chukwuma Okorafor locked him down. He also did the same thing to Von Miller his rookie season. He's learned very quickly. Big guy, he's really quick with his feet. They keep finding guys, and now I know you guys probably remember they love to bring in that 6th offensive lineman to help with the blocking. They brought back Gerald Hawkins, a former LSU lineman, a 4th round draft pick from I want to say 2016, and who never really got any play for the Steelers. He was always hurt. He went to the Buccaneers. They picked him off their practice squad and brought him back. Now he had a huge seal on the Benny Snell touchdown run last week. He's been working well. This offensive line continues to find ways to win. They will try to protect Villanueva, I think, because they know Ngakoue from all their battles with the Jaguars over the years, just like they know Calais Campbell. And they're going to address that. And they know Matt Judon. There's going to be a lot of that addressing across the board. And they've been asking different guys to help out there. You're probably going to see that 6 lineman set more than a few times in this game. You're probably going to see Vance McDonald and Eric Ebron, not necessarily be full-time blockers, but chip a man inside to help the offensive line work. I'm not overly concerned, but I do think it could be a major source of strength from the Ravens if they win those battles.
Well, I sure hope that it's Ebron that they decide to bring in to help out. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, he's been struggling with the blocking game this year, but Ben really likes him as a receiver. I'll tell you what, it's crazy that they signed him because I was covering them when they played the Lions back in 2017 in Detroit, and I remember watching Ben Roethlisberger go up to Eric Ebron in warmups, and they hugged, and it was like a bromance, and I'm like, what is going on here? And it took 3 years, but now they're on the same team, and Ebron's like, this is all I've ever wanted. I'm like, who are you? You were with the Lions, and then with the Colts. How did this happen? But that's what it is, I guess.
Hey, man.
Yeah, he's looking good run up the seam. No doubt about that. Well, let's switch to the other side of the ball. If I, as a Ravens fan, had to point to one area that really concerns me about this game, I mean, it's got to be the front 7 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's not what I think a lot of people always talk about, which is their insane pass rush and the fact that they lead the league in sacks. I'm most worried about their ability to shut down the rush attack, because I think that's pivotal for the Ravens' success. And I look in, and they've given up the least amount of yards in the league. It's just 413 total rushing yards, which is just 68 yards a game. So I know also they got TJ Watt and Vince Williams, who are 1 and 2 in tackles for loss this season with 12. So what is it about this Steelers defense that's been so good against the run this season?
They're cohesive. They play hard and fast. They know what their calls are. They're not questioning what they're doing anymore. And I said this a couple of years ago. I was like, I think Bud Dupree's ready to tear something loose. After the 2018 season, he had 10.5 sacks. And now you're seeing him. He's right up there with TJ, pressuring the quarterback, getting after in the backfield, shutting down the run. They account for each other. And I wrote a Carter's Classroom column, which will be up by Wednesday morning for DKPittsburghSports.com, where it breaks down the film analysis to show it's everybody. It's, Watt and Dupree crashing the edges and sometimes moving to the inside to confuse people. It's Vince Williams coming in as the battering ram, taking on a fullback, taking on the lineman in the hole. And if everyone else does their jobs, he goes after the running back. There was a couple tackles for loss he had on Derrick Henry. And Devin Bush, as much as they're going to miss him, his role in defense is behind Shazier's. And I said this a lot on the Locked On Steelers podcast and everywhere I could, but people forget that in 2017, when Shazier went down, he was the defense. He was central moves everywhere to cover up. Oh, Artie Burns, you can't cover. We'll help you over here. Oh, Sean Davis, Mike Mitchell, you guys struggle in the middle. Guess what? I'm dropping back to cover here. Oh, I'm blitzing here. Devin Bush didn't need to do that because Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson, Minka Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmonds, all of them are playing at a high level right now. Mike Hilton, too, in the slot cornerback, playing very well. Devin Bush was able to just kind of say, hey, I'm taking away the running back in the receiving game. I'm just going in screens. I'm taking him out. And he did a very good job about that. I haven't checked it this week, but I know going into last week, and I'm pretty sure this stands because Derrick Henry didn't catch many passes, but the Steelers had given up the fewest catches by running backs in the NFL. And that was a big reason because of Devin Bush flying out and saying, go ahead, try him. I'm right there ready for it. Robert Spillane filling in has played well, but it's that cohesiveness. It's that they are so ready to adjust to different things that they see that allows them to play fast, trust each other, and also don't overlook Tyson Alualu at nose tackle. He's been blowing people up in the middle of the field, and he won't make the tackles himself all the time, but he will create that space for Spillane and Williams to fly in the middle and then attack the running backs in the backfield. You're right that this front seven, I mean, the front four itself is the best front four in football. With Dupree, Watt, Hayward, and Tuitt. Those guys are phenomenal. Tuitt, especially right now, is just crushing people. And Hayward, he's not even firing on all cylinders yet. Like, he's a guy, I think he's getting into that old age where he gets really, really good. He gets to his stride by mid-season, and I'm waiting for that to kick in around this time because that's when it kicked around last year because they really needed him when Tuitt went down. So they're a tough defensive front, and it's because they know what they're doing. They're familiar with their scheme, and they're confident with what they're doing.
Yeah, man, I'm not excited about how good the defense is. It's not an exciting proposition. I'm just going to be honest with you. But I want to talk to you about the health of this team overall. Of course, anyone who follows this rivalry knows that, and this goes without saying in any game, but the health of each team is imperative. And can make, drastic differences in such close margin, games where I think the average differential is something like 3 points over the years or something like that. But my question to you is, how healthy are the Steelers going into this game? Any key guys going to be missing?
Deontay Johnson suffered an injury last week, but he's already made it clear that he's fine and ready to go. They were missing Mike Hilton and Derek Watt last week. Mike Hilton said it seems like he's ready to go. Derek Watt, the same thing. The two guys that seem like they were hurt up are backups. Jordan Dangerfield, he's the special teams captain, but he's like the third or fourth safety on the roster. And then there was one more guy, but it's like he's a question. Oh, Chris Wormley, the former Raven. He suffered a knee injury. He's questionable right now. They're getting him MRI'd. He might miss, but he honestly hasn't been that big of a plug for the Steelers this year. They've been really working with Alualu. They've liked Isaiah Buggs. They threw in Henry Mondeau, a practice squad guy they brought up last week, who actually even played fullback for them for a snap. So that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, no real injuries other than Devin Bush, him being out, but Robert Spillane is filled in with them, and they're going to rotate that a lot. Look out for Robert Spillane on rushing downs, and then Ulysses Gilbert on passing downs, because they're going to try and use Ulysses Gilbert's speed to be able to try and make up for what Devin Bush used to bring to that position. I also expect them to use Terrell Edmonds in that position a lot, because he's been very good applying himself in the underneath assignments that this defense needs.
I want to talk about a little bit about that secondary of the Steelers, because last year when they picked up Minka, the production went through the roof. They were scoring touchdowns left and right. Uh, Going into this year, now they got Minka for a full 16. But I'm looking at, we see a lot of Pittsburgh games, but we don't watch every snap. I look at Pro Football Focus, and they're not ranking up there as high as they were. I mean, Minka was off the charts. We saw a resurgence from Joe Hayden. We saw the kind of coming out party of Nelson, but this season, not ranking up there where they were. Is that more misleading? I mean, you've seen every snap. What can you tell us about the secondary of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, the thing is that they don't have the super duper splash that everyone always looks for. With NFL defenses, and that comes and goes every year. That's about opportunities and about luck sometimes, just with who gets to make those plays. But I look at this secondary, and they still have the pieces that they need to succeed in this game. I think that when I've looked at and evaluated the things, Joe Hayden's still Joe Hayden. He still applies himself every play. He's still giving himself he's still acquitting himself well. You've got Steven Nelson lining up outside. He's given up some plays, but he's still challenging a lot. And I think that's the thing that everyone has been looking for with the Steelers, is that they want to see him still fighting through every snap. Mike Hilton's acquitted himself very well at the slot cornerback. Cam Sutton has filled in very well as well at the position. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, he may only have one interception so far, but teams are voting him for the most part. When you look at his numbers right now, you see in coverage he's given up 8 completions for like 120 yards over 6 games. So that's 20 yards per game. And he's consistently the guy in the middle of the field, usually playing deep cover one or center robber, under the cover one. And the reason you don't see any numbers on him like that is because people are avoiding him. And I think that's a good thing for what the defense does. Now, also the thing is, this is an unprecedented year for what NFL offenses have been able to do. I mean, we see the numbers have exploded across the board for all the teams. But the Steelers secondary, I mean, they're still playing physical. They're still playing well. I think there's some mistakes that we've seen early on that show like, hey, maybe they could have used, a preseason game or two. But all in all, there's still that challenging group that's going to at least make you be honest and make you win plays. There's very few plays where you say, oh, that was a busted coverage. It's most of the plays when another team makes them, it's, hey, that guy made a heck of a play and beat this guy in this one-on-one situation, and it worked out. So still be on the lookout for the Steelers secondary. I think they're also going to have a really strong second half to the season with a lot of the quarterbacks they have lined up.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one. Now, what I want to talk about is a guy that you mentioned before, Yannick Ngakoue. Of course, the Ravens, again, were active nearing the trade deadline. So 2 questions for you. One, what do you think of the move? What's your thoughts on it? And then also, do you expect the Steelers to be active in the trade deadline to improve their roster before the deadline passes as well?
Well, first, I love the move for Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, a lot of people questioned it, but I was like, hey, the Ravens need more presence up front. They need to help stop the run. They need to get after the quarterback more. And, Yannick Ngakoue and Calais Campbell, it's like best friends. It's the 3 best friends ever could have. I mean, they're back from being what they were at the Jaguars. These guys, they were a problem for the Steelers in the past. And so it made a lot of sense. Hey, get these 2 guys together again, and maybe they can recreate some of that magic up front for us. So I liked the move. I thought it was a really smooth move by the Ravens. They've done a lot of that over the past, over their existence. I mean, that's why the Ravens and the Steelers are rivals. They are 2 well-run organizations with people up top that know what they're doing in the general manager offices. But I don't expect the Steelers to make any major moves. I mean, they're solid at cornerback. They're solid at quarterback. They have their running backs they want. They're deep at wide receiver. Their offensive line is fine right now. If anything, they will get a low-level inside linebacker to add to the depth at that position to replace Devin Bush, but not like a starter. Like a lot of Steelers fans ask me all the time, hey, what if we try to go get like Bobby Wagner or Fred Warner? I'm like, no, like cut that out. Like the most that they'll do is get like Alex Anzalone from the Saints, a guy that's like, he's young, he's still on his rookie deal, and maybe the team wants to deal him, but the Saints wouldn't do that because he contributes for them. They would need a younger guy or a cheaper guy that would not flex their salary cap any. And that's the thing, that most of the guys that people want to talk about bringing to the team to fill in for Devin Bush, they would direct this team's salary cap for the next few years. And they can't afford to do that because after this season, they got to decide, they probably can't get Bud Dupree back, but they might be able to bring Juju Smith-Schuster or James Conner back. And then they got to decide how are they going to do, other moves, keeping people around. I can expect some people are talking about Ben Roethlisberger, maybe, extending his deal with Pittsburgh and then stretching out that money so that there's more opportunities to sign people because he knows he needs to win right now. So we'll see how that plays out. But I don't think that there's any major moves. If there is, it's like a 6th round draft pick for some backup linebacker from another team, or they pluck somebody from a practice squad that they think, he'll fill in nicely and we'll use him occasionally.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to wait and see if you are correct on that one. Well, as a Steelers fan, what worries you when you look at the Ravens? What worries you the most about this particular game?
As always, it's Lamar Jackson. They got to be able to contain him. I haven't seen the emergence of Lamar Jackson's, compadre on offense yet. Mark Andrews has still been up and down. He had those 2 drops in the playoffs. You see him still dropping passes this year. He dropped a couple touchdowns, and I was like, what are you doing, man? That's been disappointing to see because I really thought that there was going to be somebody on that offense that became Lamar Jackson's guy and then was like, hey, we are going to kill people together. And then once people key onto you, then I can chip it down to this guy and that guy and that guy. And then you see the chemistry coming. I haven't seen that come yet. I mean, it's still early in the season. That can develop. But Lamar Jackson, as always, is a playmaker. I'm a little concerned for the Ravens offensive line, missing Marshall Yanda. Again, it's not about, oh man, I hated playing against. I have a lot of respect for what Marshall Yanda did over the years. So not seeing him line up against the Steelers kind of sucks. And I love good offensive linemen, but defensively, that defensive front, what's Ngakoue got for the Steelers? What's Calais Campbell got for the Steelers? I want to see how they play. They know how to play against Ben Roethlisberger, though this is a different Ben Roethlisberger, so I'll be interested to see how they play that. And then, of course, the Ravens cornerbacks, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Jimmy Smith. They're all healthy, right? I'm not speaking out of tongue there, but I look at that and I say that's the biggest thing is that I think one of the biggest matchups in this game is the Ravens cornerbacks versus the Steelers receivers, because both are extremely deep and both have playmakers on, in those positions. I've said this a bit too much, I think, on our podcast at the Locked On Steelers, saying every week, the past 2 weeks with the Browns and the Titans, I said, what's the immovable object against the unstoppable force in this game? And for the Browns and the Steelers, it was the ground game. And for the Titans and the Steelers, it was the ground game. And now you have the number 1 rushing offense again with the Ravens this week going up against the Steelers. My guy Tony Serino, he was Scorpion, and then Derrick Henry was like Goro, and now Lamar Jackson's like Shang Tsung, working your way up the ladder in Mortal Kombat to face people. So I thought that was a cool comparison. But it's all the athleticism still there for the Ravens, and there's still that continuity there. They know how to win. They didn't forget that. So that's the thing, is that the Ravens, they're a team that if they are battling with you early, they're going to stick with you. Now the thing is to me, it's just a stigma. I don't know about you guys. It's just a stigma, but a lot of people say, well, if the Ravens get down, they can't come back. I just think they haven't yet. I don't think it's a can't, but it will certainly be put to the test if the Steelers can get an early lead on the Ravens, and then it'll be a question of, okay, what happens from there?
Yeah, I would say though, don't sleep on Mark Andrews. He does have 5 touchdowns in just 6 games, so he's still
he makes plays.
Yeah, he had a bad game against the Chiefs, but outside of that game, he still looks like the Mark Andrews that we know and love here in Baltimore. 5 touchdowns in 6 games, not bad.
No, I'm not saying he's bad, but he's been up and down. Like I was expecting if it's going to be him or Hollywood Brown, but one of those guys were going to be like you don't miss a beat, like you're just on it all the time. And I thought that was going to be what Lamar Jackson got this year, because that's what you saw in the Titans game. Lamar Jackson had 500 yards against them in the playoffs last year, but Mark Andrews dropped 2 touchdowns. No one else stepped up, and it was a lot of weight to put on a young quarterback's shoulders.
Yeah. I
Oh,
can't wait for this game, man.
exciting.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm sure that you're just as excited. Whew. So I have a question for you as far as the Steelers go. What do they have to do offensively? And then, if you can pinpoint one thing offensively and one thing defensively to come out with a victory, what would you say the Steelers have to do on each side of the ball?
Offensively, they got to win in the middle of the field. They got to be able to run the ball a little bit, but they also have to use their matchups here. The Ravens still have athletic cornerbacks, but the middle of the field, I'm a little shaky on those safeties. Ben needs to go after those guys and isolate, get plays that are isolated, getting Chase Claypool in the middle of the field, let him run through. That's what the Eagles went through. They didn't have the safeties to keep up with the Steelers receivers, and eventually they gave up the deep passes, and Chase Claypool was ripping their heads off. I think the Ravens will come out and try to take away Chase Claypool because they've seen him as a playmaker. But the thing is, Deontay Johnson's still a freak, man. The guy, when he gets the ball in space, when he gets the ball in space, he is cutting and making people miss. And he reminds me of Santonio Holmes. I try to not say Antonio Brown because it's too cliche-ish, but he reminds me of Santonio Holmes with how quickly he stops on a dime, turns one way, goes another, and is explosive. So I'd expect, watch out for the Steelers trying to hit up the middle of the field with Eric Ebron, Juju in the slot, Claypool in the slot, maybe Deontay on a drag route. Also, look out for Ray McLeod, man. That guy, he's been a good punt returner for the team, and he's become the slot guy. Like if you remember Eli Rogers from years ago, and they tried to make Ryan switch to that, but he never was. But Ray McLeod is that. He's got the speed and the explosiveness in space. So they'll try to, I think it's how Ben Roethlisberger attacks the middle of the Ravens defense that's going to determine this game, because he knows how talented those corners are, and he's going to see them lining up outside. But I think they're going to be content. Hey, take those guys away outside. We're happy with Vance McDonald and Eric Ebron and Juju and whoever else is coming over the middle here and targeting those guys. So that's offensively. Defensively, contain Lamar. Make someone else beat you. And the last time that this team played Lamar, they got 3 interceptions out of him. I think if they do that to him this time around, and they're able to keep him, bottled up from being a supreme playmaker and not make it and force some mistakes, even if he does make a lot of plays, if they force a lot of mistakes like they did last time, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is going to play like Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges and play that around. So contain Lamar Jackson, force someone else to beat you. If Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins, because I hear Mark Ingram might not play, but if one of those guys has a career performance, okay, we'll see with that. But I like what Terrell Edmonds has done this year to tight ends. The Steelers are done really well against the tight end position, so I think that's another huge matchup is Andrews versus Edmonds and the crew there in the middle of the field. But yeah, so it's containing Lamar on defense and working the middle of the field on offense. Those are my 2 keys for the Steelers here.
All right.
Yeah, I like hearing that. I think I have to agree. The middle of the field is certainly going to be important in this one. Well, looking at the division as a whole, if it's not the best division in football, it's certainly one of. I mean, we got 3 teams with 5 wins, with of course the Steelers having 6. So, in your opinion, with the expanded postseason, do all 3 get in the postseason eventually?
I'm still skeptical about the Browns, man, and I said this from the jump. I did this tweet like right after the Steelers Browns game, because it's like the Browns, they've got 5 wins, but who are their 2 losses to? Steelers and the Ravens. How much did they lose by in those games? By like 30 points. Like it's like you guys aren't real yet. You ain't proved nothing. You ain't grown no chest hairs. Like come on, man. Like so my tweet that I did was it's an AFC North like a group meeting, and the Steelers are like, hey, we're on a tear. This is our year, and the Ravens are like, hey, not so fast. You got to deal with us. And then I say the Browns go like, hey guys, aren't we a great division? And then I have both the Steelers and the Ravens doing the Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince saying, we? What do you mean we are a great division? It's still the Ravens and the Steelers of the class, and that's not to say the Browns haven't done what they're supposed to do on those other 5 games. But I just don't believe that organization until they show me something. I think that they could make the playoffs because the AFC North has a very favorable schedule across the board. But, I mean, I really think that they're this close to falling apart again. Just they needed the miraculous performance they got from Baker last week to beat the Bengals. The Bengals.
Thank you.
And, yeah. And if they don't get that, they don't win that game. And that's a game that if you're for real, you need to put that team away. I mean, the Steelers with Mason Rudolph shut the Bengals down last year. So, like, Like you need to tell me this team it's supposed to be your year couldn't do that. It came down to the wire. Okay, you guys are the stuff. This to me is still 1A, 1B, Steelers, Ravens battling out year after year. Organizations that think very similarly, act very similarly, and build to win football games and know how to win football games. Browns, Bengals, I don't see it. The best division in football for me is the NFC West. I mean, they're just crushing everything in their path. The Rams defense looks phenomenal. The offense looks good enough there. Russell Wilson is a bad man, but we saw how bad of a man Kyler Murray was. So I mean, they're crushing it. And I know I'm forgetting a team right now in the NFC West. Oh, that's right, the Niners. They're not. I mean, they're not. I've always thought that the Niners weren't the best team in the NFC. I thought they just had a hot year last year, but they're playing still kind of well, even without Nick Bosa. So NFC West to me is still the best division in football. AFC North, 1A, 1B, Browns, you might make the playoffs of that 7 seed, but you getting whacked by whoever's the 2 seed in that first round.
Hey, you know what? I know Jimmy agrees with you about the Browns, but let me just say this. Baker, before he got Odell Beckham, he broke the rookie passing touchdown record. And after Odell Beckham went out of that game early on, he was perfect after he went out, had 5 touchdowns. And only incompletion was a spike to kill the clock. So is that what the Baker we're going to be seeing, the no Odell Beckham? And maybe if so, they could be a lot better. I don't know.
I think that it's funny that that's how it happens. Maybe Baker feels like he's not the alpha when Odell's on the field. I don't know if that's what that is. I don't get Baker Mayfield's demeanor. He acts like he's arrived when he hasn't. And he's still like during the offseason, I don't root against Baker Mayfield. I just see him do the things that I'm like, why are you doing that? Like during the offseason in Super Bowl week when he's at Radio Row and he's talking to people, at one point he tells someone, he's like, I'm not going to respond to people in the media anymore. I'm just going to focus on me and focus on my guys and do that kind of stuff. And then in the middle of the season, he's like, F you, Colin Coward. And like, there was Adam Crowley, who's a radio guy here in Pittsburgh. He tweeted out, didn't even tag Baker Mayfield. He just tweeted out, he said, Case Keenum will replace Baker Mayfield by sometime this season. And Baker Mayfield found the tweet, liked it. And Adam's like, well, clearly he hasn't grown up because he's still searching for his name to find it, to get the interaction. And still he cares what other people think of him. To me, that's where he hasn't grown. There's got to be foundational integrity for an organization to know how to win, how to bounce back, how to position your players and teach them this is the culture we need here. And I don't see that yet with the Browns. The Ravens, they know how to do. They know how to bad loss. Okay, lick your wounds. We got to go next week. Let's go. Same thing with the Steelers. It's something that's ingrained into certain organizations, and especially with the leadership positions. The Browns are still figuring that out. I still think whatever's got to be there, the entire organization needs to be gutted. It's not just a head coaching change, the GM change, whoever calls the shot in the president. It's everything. Get everybody out, place new people in, and that's what the Browns did. With the Ravens, when they switched to Baltimore. There's a lot of changes. Bing, bang, boom. Get Ray Lewis in, and now the Ravens are a competitive team. Just Cleveland ain't it, man.
I'm with you 100%. You can't play the underdog and then act like you've arrived.
Right.
You can't do both things, so it's not, you can't do that. So, all right. I have 2 questions for you here. I'm pretty sure based on the last prediction that you made with Hodges as the starting quarterback, I know where you're going to go with this answer, but 2 questions for you. One, are the Steelers the best team definitively in the AFC North at this point? And then 2, which way are you leaning as far as a prediction of the outcome of this game? And if you can reveal any of your outcome, I don't know if you wait till a certain day in the week to post your outcome or anything like that, but if you can give us an insight into your outcome, we would appreciate it.
So what was the first part of the question? Sorry.
Yeah. Are the Steelers right now are you ready to say they're the best team in the AFC
I'm not sure
North?
if they're the best yet. I think that they're the most complete because the Ravens, they have a hole. You got to stop the run a little bit better. They got to figure out what's going on in the middle of that defense. The Steelers don't necessarily have a hole in their defense like that. And their offense seems to find answers in the ground game and in the passing game right now. I mean, they're one of the top scoring teams in the NFL. And I didn't think that I said if the Steelers were in the top 16, if they were in the top half of the league offensively, they would be a threat this year. They're in the top 5. And that's the issue I have with them. I mean, I won't say that they're necessarily the best just yet. I will say that they're the most complete, I think, right now. And I think that they're in the best position. I also think that this game is much more of a must win for the Ravens. If they go down 2 games to the Steelers and the next game is at Heinz Field and they still have to play the Titans, and the Steelers, they got a lot of cupcakes coming up. They got the Cowboys after this. They still got to play Washington. They still got to play the Colts. And I don't think they've lost the Colts since Peyton Manning was there. They still get to play Jacksonville, and Jacksonville doesn't look like the same Jacksonville problems. They still got to play the Bengals twice and the Browns again. Like, you look through those games, there's a lot of favorable games in the Steelers' way, and they've been beating the teams that they're supposed to beat here. I think that the Steelers are in control right now. If the Ravens lose this game, they're going to have to pull some crazy stuff to finish out this season, and then beat the Steelers later in Heinz Field. They need to win right now at M&T to even out the records and say, okay, we're still right here. We'll see you later in the season. So I think the more of the pressure's on the Ravens there. As for leaning on this game, I'm leaning to the Steelers because I think right now I think they're the more complete team. But I think this is going to come down to a field goal or a touchdown, like a 4-point lead here. I usually give a prediction in our Thursday episodes where we do crossover Thursdays, where I talk to Kevin from Locked On Ravens, and we give our predictions there. But I think this is, again, it's the same way I told y'all before the season started with this division. I think it's a coin flip. It's going to come down to a couple plays where late in the game, who blinks, who makes the mistake. Like last time, Juju fumbled. Even with Devlin Hodges playing quarterback. I think it's going to come down to who makes more mistakes later in the game and then who capitalizes on it the most. I'll pick the Steelers because I think that they're ready to do that right now. But I think it could easily be the Ravens, and we could be seeing both teams at 6-1. That would be the records. Yeah, 6-1 going into next week. But I could also see the Ravens, not doing enough, and the Steelers stuffing the run and saying, "Hey, beat us with Marquise Brown, beat us with Mark Andrews, do that." And maybe Lamar Jackson not doing enough of that in this game. So I'm leaning towards the Steelers. I'm still figuring out where I want the scores to go, though.
Interesting. I knew coming in 6-0, we had to get Chris on because you're going to be spitting bullets. We love the energy, man. We appreciate you coming on. Why don't you let our viewers know where they can find the stuff you're working on?
So first of all, if you want to follow me, thank you for having me on. It's always fun to talk to
absolutely.
You guys. If you want to follow me, at Carter Critiques. If you follow me on Twitter, I will follow you back. Hit me with @s DMs. I'm always down to chat with guys. I don't big time anybody. Unless you say some crazy stuff, then I will mute you. But my work is at dkpittsburghsports.com, and that's D as in David and K as in kangaroo. But dkpittsburghsports.com. We cover the Steelers, the Pirates, the Penguins. I also cover the University of Pittsburgh's football and basketball teams for them. So we do a lot of work there. I'm the host of the Locked On Steelers podcast. I host podcasts for dkpittsburghsports.com as well. So I'm all over the place, man. I also do stuff for Channel 11, the local NBC station here in Pittsburgh, where I do fantasy football, all this other number of things. So a lot of things, man. If you like what I'm saying here, I appreciate y'all, and I appreciate y'all for having me. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
I dig y'all's show, even with your Marlon Humphrey background. But no, this is always dope. Thanks for having me, and hey, I'd be happy to do this again whenever these two teams play again. And who knows, they might play each other 3 times this year.
That's right. I have a feeling that that's going to be the case. So we'll look forward to Thanksgiving, that game as well. We'll be sure to have you back on, and have a great evening, man. Thank you.
Fellas.
Thanks, Chris.